Hello and welcome to another video by Rick Miracle. Hey, in my series Freemasonry and Satanism. It's a crazy world, so it seems. All this bizarre information in the media, the news, the TV, bombings, shootings, threatening President Donald Trump, movements by the left, the liberal progressives, movements by the right, the conservatives, the Christians. It's enough to boggle the mind. What if I said that was the plan? They want to boggle the mind. They want to get people to be caught up in everything. Statistically, they figured out how much we people can handle at once. So they know how to overload our system, so to speak. You know, you plug too many appliances into a certain light outlet, and eventually the breaker will pop and you won't have any electricity at all. You have to go reset it. Well, they're trying to break or trip our energy system. You can take people right into a mental deranged state by overloading their system. So when I go through this video, keep in mind reality is not what you think. The key to getting out of this prison planet, as Alex Jones would say on Infowars.com, is to waking up to some basic fundamental truths. And I've extended my research into channeling because I see that it is a huge part of the New Age. I can see that the New Age is a huge part of changing the world, the consciousness of the whole planet. And from normal family values, which a lot of people are so programmed they'll knee-jerk at that when you say it, Christian values, other religious values, decency, protection for children, normalcy. But people today will jump and say, Rick, there's no such thing as normal anymore. Go watch Modern Family. You're missing it, Rick. That's what people say. That's old news, the ways. Now you got to get with the new way. So what happened back in 1933, prior to World War II? What happened prior to World War I? So this is going to be a continuation of a insightful topic and discussion. But we need to hear it. We need to think about it. I don't expect everybody to agree with everything. We can all be civil about it and have a discussion. But again, I think it needs to be discussed. Anyways, the topic of the book, and I find these topics in books because I watch other people's videos. So let me give credit where credit is due. All of my research, called book reviews, is from people who have spent many years trying to warn the rest of us, maybe 50% of the stuff I go over. And some of those books are blatant attempts to alter society as we know it. Deceiving us, beguiling us, preparing us for our doom, our death. Does somebody really, really want to destroy the planet? Is Satanism, Luciferianism, is evil real? I believe it is, and I believe I can show it. I've been showing it. So when they do this channeling, for example, who are they talking to? So the book is Germany Must Perish. You can go online and find this book. I found it free, PDF. Been downloading some pages. Made a little binder. I called it series number 124. This is part 2. And I've got a few props here I'll show you. Things maybe to help support what I'm going to read in a few minutes. Secret Societies and Subversive Movements. Nestor Webster. A well-known, educated author. Highly respected. So that would have been series 70. Watch the videos I made there. Great material. Another one I went over that was quite insightful. Just think about this. Bloody Zion. What is Zion? Series number 69. Edward Hendry, another respected author. Who are you going to believe? That's why I do book reviews. I'm not trying to get anybody to believe Rick Miracle me. I read these books. I've read these books. I've made videos on these books. I'm up to 126 books, and some of these books I made, like the Blue Lodge Handbook, 12 2-hour videos. Some of them made 7 2-hour videos, 5 2-hour videos. So we're closing in on more than 400 hours. So one would think, with that much research and reading, and on my 13th year, that I might have accumulated an opinion or two and a half. And these books tell the story. The Work of All Ages, series number 68. You go watch my videos. The ongoing plot to rule the world from biblical times to the present. So when we talk about the channeling and other psychic material, and even Carlos Castaneda, the invisible reality, and many other books I've gone over, and more books I will go over more on these topics to further cement the evidence that there's more than just this material reality, this physical reality we're in. There is an invisible reality. And if we look what's been going on the planet for the last few thousand years, even prior to the flood with Atlantis, if you examine all the information, there does seem to be some kind of huge conflict in the invisible reality, which is spilling over into the visible reality, the world as we know it. The ongoing plot to rule the world. And many of the Jewish peoples and cultures have been into the Kabbalah. Mysticism, Satanism, Illuminati, sacrificing people, Bohemian Grove, witchcraft. Crazy, you think? And then, of course, this one Jewish man from New York, United States, decided to be part of the Aliyah, where people from all over the world for the last 100 years have been leaving all of the countries all over the world with a little encouragement. You know, they stir up anti-Semitism in even Iraq, Argentina, United States, Canada, all over Europe. Somebody's trying to fulfill some kind of prophecy and bring some kind of Jewish utopia about. And it's not all Jewish people. A lot of these people, like Jack Bernstein, this book I'm holding, moved to Israel and found out the truth. And they got something called Sephardic Jews and Ashkenazi Jews. Yeah, funny with that word, Ashkenazi. German Nazis. And the Ashkenazis are from the Khazarian area up there by Germany and Russia. And called Khazaria. The people who had a propensity for being a very barbaric type of people, which is right next door to the Mongolia, who had the Mongols, Genghis Khan, who was barbaric, and invaded all of the Orient for down into China, etc., and the Middle East and off towards Europe, slaughtering people relentlessly. So there are, and he said God told him he needed to punish the human race. So what is it with these entities, I guess, portraying themselves as gods from the invisible reality to humans on this reality and guiding them into mass destruction? And a little story just to show that I have some accumulated knowledge and opinions here. But prior to World War I, Germany was prospering. The Industrial Revolution was well underway. And it was putting a bite or damaging the Britons, Londons, the people who run that country, known as the United Kingdom, England, London, Britain. And so Britain was not succeeding so well in the Industrial Revolution, but the Germans were. And ironically, Germany at that time, prior to World War I, was prospering, no question there, and was causing Britain to decline. But one of the reasons that I believe Germany was probably prospering is because it was a safe haven, a place of refuge for the Jewish people fleeing Russia. Because the Jews, at that time, and not all Jews, but were causing problems. And so the Russian leader, the Tsar, and the governments all over had to crack down, which I guess you would do that anywhere where you were having problems, criminal things happen, disturbances in societies. And on no small scale. Russia was a big country, half of the whole continent over there. And so the people, the Jews, were fleeing Russia, and Germany was a host country, welcoming them, giving them opportunity, and they were thriving. They had thought they had found their Garden of Eden, their utopia. So anyways, during World War I, when it first started, and Britain was losing, some Zionist, World Zionist Organization, World Zionist Congresses, they had these organizations, numerous ones in every country, from Romania to France to the United States, Canada, all over the world. They were united, a people without a home, without a country. But they were united by that Jewish heritage, I guess, but the Khazarians, the Ashkenazi Jews, didn't have any Hebrew blood in them at all. They just, that whole country, 1,000 years ago, adopted the Jewish religion, those barbaric people. And so the plan was to take over the world, and being part of God's chosen people, they were making a combination of that and the mysticism and the Kabbalah, what I call witchcraft. So it's just a recipe for disaster for the rest of the world. But anyways, some of those Jewish leaders all over the world had an inspiration, an idea, and said, well, we can help Britain not lose the war and win the war, because we have the power and the money and the control, even over President Woodrow Wilson in the United States prior to World War I. So they went to Britain and they said, hey, we can do this. We'll get you the money. We'll get America to come on your side. You'll win the war. And your job after that is to help us get the Palestinians' land, called the Balfour Agreement. There's pictures of that in this book. You can go watch my video, series number 43. But that's the story about World War I. And then, of course, we're talking next about World War II. Okay, so at the end of World War I, with the Versailles, or I call it the Versailles Treaty and hearings, were the world controlled by many Jewish peoples. And it's in this Germany Must Perish in my research material here, that they did in fact control everything and made premeditated decisions to destroy Germany prior to World War II, Well, that's why this book came out in 1933, Germany Must Perish. But anyways, after World War I, they had the Versailles Treaty and hearings, court trials, persecutions, prosecutions. So anyways, they levied huge amounts of money, fines, and penalties on Germany. Germany lost the war. To such an extent, it was a huge destruction, really horrible for all the people of Germany. And so many of the Germans found out about that betrayal of all those Jews who had moved there from the Russian area and other places. And I've gone over the Zionism and anti-Semitism in Germany and other stuff from the Encyclopedia Judaica. And I have more material. They have whole pages in those books under different names, like an encyclopedia would. And one of those things I looked up the other day was Germany. Then I looked up Romania. Separate topics, highlights. It tells the whole history. So now, between World War I and World War II, the Germans had found out they were betrayed on World War I with the Balfour Agreement, so that they could have their homeland in Palestine, create the State of Israel, coming into their own, so to speak. But that's exactly what their words were. They have plans, huge plans. And it might behoove the rest of us to wake up. One of those plans, I've gone over this book, series number 67, The Jewish Utopia. The ultimate world order as pictured in The Jewish Utopia by Robert H. Williams, who was a retired intelligence officer for the U.S. government. No small thing. So he discovered in a Texas library a book that not anybody could have access to. You had to have special written permission. And when you read the book, I suppose people would understand why. And I've made 3 videos, part 3, on that book. Just looking for a picture of the cover here to share. So you had to go to the Texas library, you had to go get special permission, you had to know about this book. And it describes how they're going to take over the whole world and what they think of we Gentiles, non-Jews. It's not too good. Be forewarned. Go watch my 3 videos. And there was much more shenanigans going on that people are not aware. But even prior to and during World War II, the Zionist Jewish congresses and organizations who were all connected all over the world, many of the Jewish people, all the businesses and wealthy people, they made some deals with the German government when Hitler got elected to help move all of the Jewish assets and Jewish people, try to get as much of the wealth out of Germany and move it to Palestine. 1933, 34. I haven't made a video on this yet. I've been reading it. I started reading it. But it's all there. There is this New World Order plan, this new age. And part of it is the destruction of Christianity and other world religions. And you have to ask yourself, what are they going to replace it with? What's the plan? And I've been reading this, almost finished with this book. All the inside scoop stories from an Israeli Mossad intelligence officer. So I got Robert Williams on the U.S. side. I got this guy here who saw things and shared it all in this book. Man alive, we're in trouble. You don't know who to trust. By way of deception. So I have a couple more props, but I think I'll start reading from the book now. Germany Must Perish. And bear with me, this is not easy material to listen to. But I believe it's true material. I don't think anybody argues with that. All right, let me read on. We must bring ourselves to realize that no leader can govern Germany at all unless, in some manner, he embodies the spirit and expresses the war soul existent in the majority of her peoples. So they're trying to say the people of Germany have a propensity to be warriors, war soul. So majority is used advisedly, for in the speaking of the masses which compose a nation, it must be impartially conceded that some faction of the mass must perforce vary from it. So they're trying to say that, they're not trying to say that 100% of all the Germans are have an evil DNA, a war soul. So they're saying a small portion must be good people. Consequently, no unfair contention is here being made that everyone in Germany is guilty of its heinous offenses against the world. In fact, we shall, in pursuing our point, favor Germany by allowing that as much as 20% of her population is entirely guiltless of complicity in her crimes, as well as being foreign to any share of her war soul. We therefore grant, for argument's sake, that some 15 million Germans are absolutely innocent. But shall the Poles, the Czechs, the Slavics, the Austrians, the Norwegians, the Dutch, the Belgians, the Frenchmen, the Greeks, the Englishmen, the Irishmen, the Scotsmen, the Canadians, the Australians, and the Americans, for we too may ultimately feel the spike of the German boot. Shall all these people, numbering 300 million, of the most civilized, most enlightened on earth, suffer constantly and face unnatural death every generation, so that some small part of the German populace may continue to exist? So they're trying to say that it's possible that 20% of the German people are innocent, but should we allow those 20% to exist at the threat they may impose? Are these 15 million Germans so valuable, so indispensable to mankind that 300 million guiltless men, women, and children shall fight a war with Germany every time she so decrees? Shall perpetual struggle against the German be the only future facing civilized people? Why breed children while Germany breeds war? This is prior to World War II. So I wonder how many people believe that these Germans were all the evil ones. I just showed you that the devil is in the details. The problem with Britain and Germany was prior to World War I. Germany was a highly industrial nation, so I guess maybe we can say, one, the country was more well located than the Britain Islands. And the Britain Islands and their wealth came from controlling the world, the United Kingdom. And the Germans' IQ and work ethic must have been very good. They were well into ironworks and locomotives and railroad tracks and all kinds of other things. Like I said, they were more well located to succeed in those things than the island of Britain. And they had all those Jewish people who were aspiring for growth, coming there and relocating and doing quite well from Russia and other places. So Britain's position was there had to be a war. It was all politics and money. But then you have the Zionist Jewish people who had a different mind game, end game, and that would be part of the Jewish utopia and the perpetual diaspora, where they didn't have a country, but they were all over the world and united and organized and had a Congress and had a particular different philosophy on life, because for the past 2,500 years, wherever they went, they had huge problems. They were exiled from Britain, exiled from France and other countries over the course of years. I think there's some YouTube videos that show they had issues in more than 92 countries in the last 2,000 years. So, can the whole world be wrong and all those Jews be right? And a lot of good Jewish people have written serious books on this subject, warning the rest of us. And what it boils down to is back to this visible reality, invisible reality, watchers, Nephilim, archons, beings that are spiritual entities that reincarnate as humans, and these are these particular religions. And they feel that they should be ruling over the rest of the peoples. And apparently there's some jealousy or animosity between in the spiritual realm, if you read the Bible and other books. So it's a spillover into this world, and people need to realize that the enemy of God's children and believers in Jesus Christ, even the followers of Muhammad and other religions all over the world with shamas, even the shamanic religions, they had commandments you couldn't kill and steal. But even some shamas turn towards the dark side. Sounds like a Star Wars analogy. There was this dark force. We need to realize that. And what is this dark force? Let me finish reading this here, and we'll get into that a little bit. Not that this video, I really don't want it to be about that, but we might want to take a small look at it. All right. So they're saying here they shouldn't even let that 20% of Germans live because they're a threat to the world. If democracy, as Americans know it, is majority rule in a national sense, it must be so in the international sense as well. The problem I have with democracy in the sense that it is when people control the media, the newspapers, the radio, the TV, the movies, the magazines, the billboards, everything. The politicians bought and paid for. And they can get a huge majority of the population to believe the lie and vote that way and agree on things that are deception. The majority is then actually working towards its own destruction, unknowingly, having been deceived and beguiled. So the democracy works if you have honest politicians and bankers and leaders and everything. But obviously we do not have that right now. The greatest good for the greatest number in democracy's rule of thumb to fight for world democracy is to secure the rights of the majority in democratic peoples against the incursions made up by them by any autocratic minority. So right now, the people who appear to be awake, trying to warn the rest of the people, statistically, they say there's about 15% of the population that are awake, trying to warn the people with the programs like Infowars.com and David Icke and many other people making videos. And they may not be perfect and they may be making mistakes, but I think a lot of the information they disseminate, that they put out there, should be reviewed by people, and people need to use their common sense, take notes like I do with notebooks and look up stuff, and try to get to the bottom of it all. And biblically, I guess the saying is, seek and ye shall find, ask and ye shall receive. And I suppose when you pray and you believe in God and read the Bible and books, that God does work in people's lives. That's been proven over and over. Miracles. There are other entities. People have seen ghosts and all kinds of apparitions, and now people are talking about UFO and aliens, reptilians, gray aliens, insectoids, blue avians, human-looking Nordics. So what's the truth? If this is not so, why conscript a vast army for democracy's defense? Why train American soldiers to murder a hypothetical enemy of democracy when the will which spawned this enemy waxes and grows with each successive bloodbath? So back then they wrote this book prior to World War II, demonizing the German people. And if people know the true story, Germany was betrayed, and this is a Jewish author who wrote this book, and no small person either. He was a member of these Zionist world organizations. So there was an end game here. So this writer of this material is not being honest. But he's creating a fever, and apparently it took hold all over the USA and the world, this hate Germany thing. And I'm not trying to say Hitler was a saint or anything, but I certainly don't think that all the German citizens, men, women, and children, should be annihilated completely. And remember, there's books by these same peoples that say they need to do that to non-Jews. The Jewish Utopia, the Protocols of Zion, and so many others. And many other, this new religion, new age material is calling for the destruction of Christianity and other good religions and people. So there is a spiritual, religious war going on between good and evil. Who is who? But they seem to be thinking right now they've got the 85%, many of them, mind-controlled and programmed to actually even believe Christians are haters because they're not going around with the pansexualism and the other satanic activities going on, symbolism all over the world. I believe a lot of people are waking up to that with the bombings and shootings and Emmys and Grammys shows, and even with the horns and the opening of the Swiss tunnel and the weird dances they were doing at CERN. There's something going on. But let me read this some more. Suppose we are forced again to kill. For wars are won only by killing, not by dying. Again, what for? Another sellout? Is selling out our soldiers to become a national habit? For quite patently, to fight once more in democratic defense against Germany? With any goal in view, save that country's extinction constitutes, even though it loses the war, a German victory? To fight, to win, and not this time to end Germanism forever by exterminating completely those people who spread its doctrines, die to herald the outbreak of another German war within a generation. Well, we can say that they've demonized all the Arabs in the Middle East, the Muslims, Islamists, with 9/11, which firmly seems to have been an inside job, evidence of nuclear materials and all kinds of collusion. In one Webster Tarpley's book, 9/11 Synthetic Terror, Judy Wood's book, scientists proving that the buildings were taken down not by two planes. You can look up these materials. So now they're demonizing Syria. Now they're saying Russia's the threat. And who controls our world? Who controls the media? Who controls the money? See, people got to wake up. We need to wake up. Let us then beware, for it is not illogical to assume that someday the soldier, if constantly marshaled and regimented against his will, may emerge from underneath the time-worn clock of duty and come like labor and capital citizen to demand his rights. So there's trying to say here, if Germany we leave any Germans alive and they keep causing these wars, then eventually our soldiers will revolt. So he's proposing that Germany can never rise again, and every man, woman, and child needs to be annihilated. Who would preach that? How sick is that? Would any of us want to say that about Jewish people? No, we're civilized. Then why would anybody, this Jewish authors, say this about German people? Why would they be demonizing Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan? These countries are in huge turmoil right now, and it's intentional. They probably plan on eliminating every one of those peoples from Syria, all over the Middle East, all that turmoil going on. Somebody has plans for a big nation and apparently ruling the entire world. It must not be unreasonable to conjecture that a soldier must have rights too. That he be adequately supplied with the proper arms in sufficient quantities, so that there be a maximum of speed attached to his killing. Secondly, he be not betrayed by fifth columnists, who must in wartime be summarily dispatched by imprisonment or execution. So that anybody who opposes the complete annihilation of the Germans, anybody who has any sympathies, must be summarily dispatched by imprisonment or execution. And a part of the protocols of Zion, even in the Jewish utopia, whatever this New Age religion is, the people who do not swear allegiance to it are the preferred way to kill them. Something even involving the Noetic laws. I've talked about this in previous videos. And if you've got your notebook, write the stuff down and look it up. Don't believe Rick. But they plan on beheading people who don't subscribe to this New Age religion. So who's the good guys and who's the bad guys here? And lastly, and prime most importance, that he receive a definite avowal by his government, guaranteeing him once and for all time that this whole ghastly, horrible business of killing Germans is at an end. That his son may know peace without having to kill for it. If such a guarantee be not vouched him before his struggle, and be not upheld after his struggle, as it was not the last time, though the generals knew among their own Persian that Germany at that time should have been utterly snuffed out. So they said Germany should have been utterly snuffed out in World War I. Now we are aware, if you've seen the books I just showed in the beginning of this video, Germany was betrayed by the Bankster World Zionist Jewry organizations, Jewish organizations. Not all Jews. Many Jews have written books to warn us. Rabbi Marvin Entelman, To Eliminate the Opate. I made videos on that, 2 of them. Maybe more. Henry Macau, PhD Jewish author in Canada. Illuminati, the cult that hijacked the world. And many more books. All right. So granting labor has the right to strike when its rights are violated. Granted, here's an interesting sentence, that capital, money, the banksters, withhold itself from circulation when it feels its usage unprofitable. So these banksters, the people who control our Federal Reserve, since 1913, Christmas time, when our politicians were on vacation, they had a deal with President Woodrow Wilson. But anyways, it says here that they can withhold capital from circulation if they feel that they're not making enough money with their capital. So they can cause distress in our society whenever they want to, because they do control our country via the Federal Reserve, controlling the USA's money supply. And they've been borrowing from their own bank, lending it to our politicians, our governments, to fight all these wars. But those mortgages, that debt is still on the books. So the more this moves forward, the more we the people owe. And they say now every child that's born, and it's probably much more than this, owes $30,000 before they're even born. I think they owe $30,000 every year because we never paid a mortgage, it's the interest. So somebody's going to foreclose on the world. This Jewish utopia, this Hunger Games movie type reality. And apparently in cahoots with evil entities in the invisible realm. So what are you going to believe? Do you believe in Satan, Luciferianism? Do you believe in the Kabbalah, magic, witchcraft, the Illuminati? The stuff we see on TV, clearly satanic, bizarre. Alright. So they want to say granting that capital withhold itself from circulation when it feels usage unprofitable. So I guess they think this is some kind of normal thing, that these people who control our banks, if they're not making enough money, they can withhold the money from us and destroy our world as we know it. And since they took over the Federal Reserve or the American money supply by creating the Federal Reserve in 1913, Christmas time, they've crashed the system here in the USA about 8 times. Bubbles, recessions, depressions, causing unbelievable hardship and pain and suffering and death and everything on we the people. And apparently they had a Great Depression before World War I and a serious depression before World War II. And I suspect they'll use that as a tool for bringing around mental anguish to we the people prior to World War III or during some event. Because when people are traumatized like that, they're probably willing to accept almost anything to get from underneath that traumatizing, trying to hope for the world to change. And who came up with that, coined that term? Waiting for the world to change. They even have a song. You see how the mind control works? Waiting on the world to change. This stuff's all intentional. Anyways, moving back here, granting that the civilian feels traumatized when his civil liberties are jeopardized, what course may the soldier not take once he realizes he has been cheated once too often out of that for which he killed? So they're trying to say it's not fair to the USA soldier, the world soldier, to leave any Germans alive because they might have to fight again. Cheating him. So if they did wipe out every man, woman, and children in Germany, or Syria, or Iraq, or Afghanistan, do you really think it'll stop there? When the day of reckoning with Germany comes, as come it will, there will be only one obvious answer. No statesman or politician or leader responsible for post-war settlements will have the right to indulge in the personal luxury of false sentiment and specious sanctimony, and declare that Germany, misled by her leaders, shall deserve the right of resurrection. So they're saying Germany does not reserve the right of resurrection. But apparently right now they are resurrecting Israel. With the Balfour Agreement, they acquired the Palestinians' land. And millions of the citizens have been murdered, cities, towns destroyed. Go on Yahoo image site, look that up. Zionism or buildings bombed in the Middle East. You'll be horrified by the pictures. And there's link by every picture that gives you the dirty details. He will not be permitted this time to forget so easily the bomb-blasted, earth-entombed millions of women and children who lived through a hell on earth, bullet-ridden, tank-crushed bodies of soldiers, that many countries whose energies were sapped and resources drained, and most of all, he will not be permitted to disregard the unselfish sacrifices made by the common people so that the beast, that is Germany, shall never roam on earth again. Wow. So this is prior to World War II. And in the middle, the Germans found out at the end of World War I, during the Versailles Treaty hearings and trials, people were arrested and prosecuted and hung and everything for war crimes or whatever. And that's where it came out that it was part of an agreement called the Balfour Agreement. And I've got much more evidence to show that it was much bigger than just the Balfour Agreement. You'll hear that in this video. And so it is with the people of Germany that may respond for a while to civilizing forces. They may seemingly adopt and superficially memorize an exterior behaviorism of civilized people. But all the while there remains ever present within them that war soul, which evidently drives them as it does the tiger. And no amount of conditionism or reasoning or civilizing, past, present, or future, will ever be able to change this basic nature. For if no impress has been made upon the war soul over a period of some 2,000 years, it is to be expected that all of a sudden, on the morrow, this miracle will occur. So they're saying for the past 2,000 years, Germany has been the beast of the world. I'm reading the Encyclopedia Judaica, and it's not what it says, and the Jews were happy they're escaping from Russia. So if they're escaping from Russia to Germany, and Germany is the beast, I guess Russia would be the beast too, and maybe America is the beast, and Canada is the beast, and Mexico is the beast, and China is the beast, and India is the beast. Is the world the beast? And the Jews are God's chosen people, are the divine entities destined to rule over all of us. And for good efficiency in business management with computerized technologies and all that, well, you don't need so many people on the planet anymore to do the work for you, to be your slaves. So they plan on depopulating the planet. And I believe, if people don't believe that, they just need to go outside and see the spraying of chemicals in their sky and look up some other things. Genetically even modifying people, notwithstanding they're modifying food, and toxic vaccines and fluoride in the water, which inhibits, suppresses our psychic abilities, communion with God, that calcifies the pineal gland. A lot of people know this stuff. Okay, back to this book. I keep drifting off, so much to talk about. This analogous linking of the people of Germany with savage beast is no vulgar comparison. I feel no more personal hatred for these people than I might feel for a herd of wild animals or a cluster of poisonous reptiles. One does not hate those whose soul can exude no spiritual warmth. So apparently none of the Germans have any capacity for spiritual warmth. Do you believe that? One pities them. If the German people wished to live by themselves in darkness, it would be strictly their own affair. But when they make constant attempts to enshroud the souls of other people in these fetid wrappings which cloak their own, it becomes time to remove them from the realm of civilized mankind, among which they have no place or right to existence. Go read the Protocols of Zion, free online PDF. Go look up the report from Iron Mountain, free online PDF. Go look up the Jewish Utopia, Robert Williams' book. What did I call that? The Ultimate World Order, Robert Williams. It's online, free PDF. I did it there. This book here, you can just look up Germany Must Perish, and some other key words like I did, and you'll find all these pages of evidence in a half an hour. Didn't take me but seconds. It's all available. You gotta love the internet. Pictures of newspaper clippings, a whole story about how these people who are behind these secret societies in the New Age plan on ruling the world and creating some kind of hybrid humans, the ones they leave alive. So they're saying here the Germans have no right to existence. Moving on. We need not condemn the Germans. They stand self-condemned. There's a lot of deception going on in Germany, a lot of economic hardships. Remember? That's what they do to get people to fall in line. And they certainly, between World War I and World War II, completely destroyed Germany's economy. Those people were suffering, and Hitler was coming along, financed by these secret societies, mesmerizing the people, dragging them into World War II. Because they were oppressed. Nobody's going to argue about that. After World War I, the big boot was put on the German people. They would have listened to anybody who would come along and try to save them. Just as any other country. Just like probably a lot of the people in the Middle East now who are becoming mercenaries, murderers, after their countries are all destroyed. I've been reading the By Way of Deception by Victor Ostrowski, the Israeli intelligence officer, and they pay these people lots of money, and they get to live in foreign cities and become drug users, drinking lots of alcohol, womanizers, and they get paid a lot of money to go out there and be mercenaries and kill people. They call them organizations like ISIS. Don't be deceived. There's stuff going on. Somebody's pulling the strings, like with these bombings and shootings, even in London. People are pointing out defects in the news reporting on videos you can go watch on YouTube, seemingly identifying these things as, yet again, staged events meant for public consumption. Just like this book, Germany Must Perish, prior to World War II, 1933. The war didn't start till 1939, 1940. So there was a lot of hammering going on at Germany. Hitler did not want to have World War II, according to what's in this book and other material I researched. For it suffices us to read and hear those words written and spoken only by Germans, to endure sufferings and dislocations caused solely by the German people in their pursuit of their megalomaniac ideas and demonic aspirations. You got the spiritual word here, demonic. To realize that it is the Germans themselves who decree, almost demand, their ostracization from their fellow man. Ostracizing. They have lost the wish to be human beings. They are but beasts. They must be dealt with as such. And if you read further material back then, they feel that way about white people in general across the United States and the world. And in some of this material I'm going to read here, they made serious plans to enslave the male German men and bring in Middle Easterns, Africans to populate with the women to dilute the white race. Called the Morgenthau Plan, M-O-R-G-E-N-T-H-A-U-L. You can go look it up and get all the details. It's all clearly spelled out. These people were into some kind of New World eugenics. And apparently, the white people in Europe, like in Russia, are in opposition with these Jewish utopian type people, Zionists, And I guess United States and white people across the world are standing in their way to control and dominate the whole world. So those and we people need to be eliminated, along with Christianity and believers in Jesus and other religions. I just happen to be Christian. All right, this is an objective viewpoint, carefully considered and factually sustained. It is the view taken of them in this book. Naturally, there are men in the world, our own country included, who think otherwise and who would deal differently with the German menace. Well, Germany doesn't control the world right now. I believe the Zionist Illuminati banksters secret societies do. Does anybody disagree with that? It is the custom of such men to take what they term a sensible view of the problems and progress of humanity. These men would rely on fate to fashion the future. They would, in effect, permit the Germans to conquer and enslave the world by explaining, in terms whose degree of ferociousness is dependent on the extent of their own personal motive of gain, that German world dominion cannot last forever. That in some future date, Germany would ultimately lose its iron grip upon the world, and then enslaved mankind would come to free itself again. Or if neither collusion nor surrender seems palatable to their listeners, they would suggest a compromise with the Germans in the so-called negotiated peace. And I want to give credit where credit is due here. If you don't like my presentation of this material, please go look up Germany Must Perish and download your own copy of PDF form and get a binder like this, or go on a used book site and you can find the books. I've seen them. And read it for yourself and get a highlighter like I do and take notes like I do. Analyze every sentence like I do. Alright, moving on. These are soulless prostitutes. I'm not sure what a prostitute is. But anyways, the Germans are apparently soulless prostitutes. They can originate only in men whose hearts and soul are still held captive by the marine life of their origin, human species of a spineless jellyfish floundering about in the waters of yesteryear. You got to admit, this Jewish businessman, world Zionist member, could write pretty viciously, calling the Germans, they're held captive by the marine life of their origin, I guess their DNA, which is the human species of spineless jellyfish. So I think they think this way about the rest of us too, by the way. Floundering about in the water of yesteryear. These are men of the past, forever living in the past. They say that when I watch that channeled information for the different channelers and the New Age material, that the old earth is gone. And we all need to be evolving and ascending to the new earth and the new way of doing things. Men who, being incapable of mastering their own intellectual and spiritual primitivism, seek to drag others down with them into the murky depths and Stygian blackness which surrounds their own pitiful existence. Go read the Protocols of Zion, Jewish Utopia. This is what they think about the rest of us according to those books. Go watch some videos on this stuff. These secret societies, Zionist, Kabbalistic, mysticism people don't seem to be up to any good. Seems like we, the people of the world, need to wake up. These are the men indeed who witnessed the actual enslavement of such civilized and human people as the Austrians, the Czechs, the Poles, the French, the Dutch, the Norwegian, the Belgians, would all too willingly close their eyes and stimulate disbelief at that which is stark and dread reality. These are men who, with fatalism at their creed, come, fortunately, with fatalism as their creed, come intellectually to be aestheticized by it, drugged by it, who, proclaiming faith an ally and having its most pathetic servants. Fortunately, such men are not yet in the majority, nor will they be unless Germany can harness, employ, and bribe enough of them to spread the German netherworld doctrines throughout the world, the earth. So, to bribe enough people to spread the German netherworld doctrines throughout the world. So, the way I see it, through the channeled material, there are beings in the netherworld. Hell, maybe? Some place where God had cast out a third of the angels, called the Watchers. This is historic stuff in the stuff I've been reading about the Book of Enoch and other things. Quite clearly spelled out. And even in the Bible, they call them archons, Nephilim, Watchers, angels, demons. And it seems like these Illuminati, Zionist, secret society folks are into some kind of communication with these people from the netherworld doctrines, which they're back then accusing the Germans of being in cahoots with these people from the netherworld, down under. But even as a minority, the danger which these appeasers, so anybody who's going to be sympathetic or not agree with this, is going to be called and become the enemy of these people who want to annihilate every man, woman, and child in Germany. And do you think it'll end there? This is 1933, they wrote this. We see what they're doing now since 9/11 and before in the Middle East. There is an endgame. World Zionism, I guess, plans on completing the Jewish utopia that Professor Hegger wrote about. I guess Professor Hegger was a rabbi. And I've made a lot of videos on that material in the Jewish Encyclopedia in my videos. Please go watch them. Unbelievable material if you haven't seen it. You think this video is insightful? Go read right from the Jewish Encyclopedia. But you have to read it with a discerning eye and examine each sentence. And say, what does that mean? Because they try to deceive us. All right, appeasers represent and nonetheless real, and they must be harshly dealt with. So we can't have any appeasers out there. We have to murder every man, woman, and child in Germany. That's what they said. For by such actions as they may take under the cloak of unquestioned patriotism, it is apparent that they would not do so unless within their own soul there existed some part complementary to the war soul of the Germans. So anybody who wants to be an appeaser and not see every man, woman, and child in Germany murdered, killed, must have some complementary part in their own soul that matches the German soul. Huh? Those other appeasers whose integrity is doubtful and patriotism questioned. So anybody who's going to go against this New World Order, including climate change and sustainability and pansexualism, all that rainbow stuff and New Age, your patriotism will be questioned. Your integrity will be doubtful. Those who advocate the principles of Germanism are downright traitors to their country. Remember, Nazi means nationalism. President Donald Trump, is trying to do things to improve the economic system in the United States and the control system of the United States, which is a nationalistic idea, theology. And I think he's going to get a lot of kickback from all over the world, a lot of resistance. And it's already happening. And is it all just part of the divide and conquer to get a bunch of people on the left and the right to fight each other? for these people who actually want to take over the world. Is President Donald Trump one of them, or is he awake and truly of a state of mind where he can see that these secret society elitists are trying to take us down to a path of destruction? I mean, it's not fair for these people to loom over our heads economic destruction, nuclear war, plagues that they've created in laboratories, mind control, monitoring us. And I was watching some of those videos on the London shootings and bombings. Why do all those police officers wear hoods and gear that make them look like SWAT teams? And they made all the people that were not part of it put their hands up behind their back and stand and march in line, people who had nothing to do with it, just like they did in the Boston bombing. They're preparing us for something. And they're trying to see, generally speaking, will the people resist? And apparently the people will not resist. And if you do resist and didn't put your hand up like this and said, no, I don't have to do that, you probably will be shot. Remember, they send a lot of our troops, police, even police chiefs and managers and all these people to Israel for training. Please go look that up on the internet. I've gone over it. I've showed those press releases. So these appeasers represent and nonetheless real, and they must be harshly dealt with. So I suspect anybody who tries to get out there and tell the truth will be harshly dealt with. For by such actions as they may take under the cloak of unquestioned patriotism. Those other appeasers whose integrity is doubtful and patriotism questionable, those who advocate the principles of Germanism, are downright traitors to their country. So you're really going to go along and agree, which most people do. Where is it going to wind up? Like the Hunger Games movie? Or worse? And when, as if by a government cannot refuse to treat them as such, it may come in time to depend upon the people whose lives and liberty are at stake to do so. So people are viciously taking sides right now. Even on the, a lot of people have come out and found some serious fault with the climate change data and said the Earth is not global warming, and they've proved the data has been manipulated. It's becoming a very vicious fight. So it is a mechanism and a tool to try to control our world and put everybody under some kind of martial law type of system and to tax everybody for these global elites. And believe me, that'll be enforced, 5 or 10%. And that's the end game, so it seems. All right, moving on here. So long as war persists, and I'm not reading everything, so please go online and find this PDF document. Germany must perish. Download it, read it on your computer screen, won't cost you $1. Print out some pages and highlight it, make yourself a binder. So long as war persists, there will never come into being that world peace, out of which someday a world confederation of nations will be born. For in such a confederation, which is the ultimate aim and absolute inevitability of the human race. So they're saying eventually there has to be a world confederation. Who's going to control the world confederation? Who do you think? Decent, everyday citizens? Why then, after passing through thousands of years of such great desire and yearning, have we failed to find peace? Well, there's a lot of money to be made in war. And why, for the past, I ask, reading the Encyclopedia Judaica, did the Jewish people, wherever they went, fail to find peace for themselves? Why is it that after such a prolonged period of time, not one single practical an enduring step has been taken towards its absolute realization, peace. Certainly no one man or group of men shall be born tomorrow who shall exceed in knowledge or excel in ability all those great men who have written, spoken, and preached about peace over the long past. What shall we do then? Throw up our hands and give up? Shall we have done with peace by exclaiming that it does not exist because it cannot? That is an unobtainable abstract. So they're saying now that should we throw up our hands and saying peace is an unobtainable thing to get. This author says, I do not believe that is any such thing. I sincerely believe that peace on earth can come to exist as a permanent condition of living. But believing in it as I do, I would not expect it to arrive on some fine morning, knock on my door, and suddenly announce its presence. No, it will never come by itself. I believe that peace can be produced, not merely conceived, but never so long as war persists. Then why does war exist? Simply because it has not been made impossible for it to be waged. This is 1933, prior to the nuclear weapons. There is only one way to abolish war: impose a penalty of such dire magnitude and frightful consequence upon aggressor peoples as to render it virtually impossible for any nation to start a war. War must be fought not with weapons of ever-increasing destruction, but with penalties infinitely more frightful and hazardous than war itself. This book sincerely believes that it has found such a penalty, and by its imposition upon the people of Germany, this book believes that not only would a great scourge be removed from the world, but a great good borne by it. So they're saying in this book what this guy just said. If they kill every man, woman, and child in Germany and wipe out the German race, the DNA, the rest of the world will see that as such an ever-increasing destructiveness and an imposition on the people that they will be so scared that they will never want to have war because all their people will be completely wiped out. There's a note here. It says the majority of authors dealing with Germanism have treated that subject purely as a product of modern times, born after the last World War, and since developed solely by Hitler and his Nazis. The reader, in pursuing the subsequent chapters on Germanism, will find out for himself just how mistaken these authors are in their viewpoints. And since the German quotations and German writings are so contemporaneously apropos, though they were all written prior to the last World War, I have thought it advisable, lest they be considered fabricated, to append the biography to this volume. And I realize this is maybe a little difficult to follow and a little bit of work, but it might be worth it if we can wake up. So the background of Germanism, just got a little bit here I want to read. As you can see, I pre-read it and highlighted that top paragraph. Germans are an inscrutable people. They think and dream of nothing but chicanery. Their great joy consists in fault-finding, shrieking, and threats. Well, I'm aware, and I think if you look at the Encyclopedia Judaica or watch my previous videos, the last couple thousand years, the Jews were exiled and had lots of problems in any country they went to, including accusations of sacrificing humans, little boys and people. Something to do with their religion. And also because 2,000 years ago, the Pharisees, the Jews back then, were accused of having Jesus crucified, the Son of God, again, an entity from the invisible world, beyond the veil, heaven, whatever you want to call it. So they would like to eliminate Christianity and Jesus from the consciousness of mankind. Not all Jewish people, as we've already mentioned in some of these books. I did get a letter from Tex Mars, and it is a battle between Christianity and the world. Vladimir Putin defends Christian civilization. So we can see clearly they're trying to destroy that. A lot of people now think it's cool to be weird, and they're opposed to the authorities and all that. Somebody is really trying to bring on chaos and anarchy to the world. And I'm a little vindicated by this magazine I got in the mail, because I keep talking about the Illuminati and the Kabbalah and mysticism, and what is this thing from Tex Mars? A well-known, famous author of many books. Says on there, Kabbalah and the Illuminati, the TV program, apparently this is some kind of Kabbalistic hand sign, and the roots trace back to Babylon and Egypt. And another little small interruption here. I got to make a video on this book. The Book of the Law by Aleister Crowley, saying some interesting thing in this book. I'm going to read a sentence. I am the secret serpent, coiled about to spring, and in my coiling there is joy. So he's a secret serpent. And I lift up my head, and I and my newt are one. If I droop down my head and shoot forth venom, then is rapture of the earth, and I and the earth are one. So I'm doing this channeled material, and apparently Aleister Crowley, who changed the spelling of his name to be 666, known as the evilest man alive, bragging about sex with children and even sacrificing children and satanic orgies and all that, part of this New Age material. What I wanted to point out in this video, and I'll get back to the book, is the being that Aleister Crowley was communicating with, Lamb and Little Gray Man. You can look this document up. There's many more. It's all here. They look like little gray aliens. So when we're talking about these beings on the invisible reality, apparently gray aliens, abductees have reported, they turn into glowing orbs or glowing beings, spiritual entities, and they could actually walk through walls. So there's something going on here that apparently is quite spiritual and magic and witchcraft. Another little note, and I'm going to move on. I just wanted to point this out. Because when you read about these people who were saying these things about the Germans and prior to World War II, and why they had World War I, knowing that Albert Pike in Morals and Dogma, the leader of the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry in the United States, and a general in the Civil War between the North and the South, said that there would be 3 world wars required to bring about this New World Order. Anyways, a little more I'll read on this from this gray alien-looking being that Aleister Crowley was channeling. Abracadabra, the reward of Ra-Hoot-Koot. There is division hither homewith. There is a word not known. Spelling is defunct. All is not aught. Beware, hold. Raise the spell of Ra-Hoot-Koot. So Ra, and I did the material of Ra, channeled material book. I'll be going over that more. Now let it be first understood that I am a god of war and vengeance. I shall deal heartily with them. Choose you an island, fortify it. Should be interesting for me to really take a hard look at this and include it in my channeled material. But clearly it's involving the UFO and aliens. And one more thing, then I'll go back to the book. But I have all these other books I have to read and analyze the information. Confronting the New Age, How to Resist the Growing Religious Movement, Douglas Gruthing's Dark Secrets of the New Age, Text Mars, that's the one who sends me that newsletter. The New Age Primer, Spiritual Tools for Awakening. So a lot of people are falling into this stuff. Today I was watching another channeled material video, Cryon, and it's quite bizarre. I took a bunch of notes. So I think all this stuff is connected. And they have to eliminate anyone who threatens this emergence of this new age and new world order. And I think a lot of people are following it, not realizing they're being deceived and beguiled. Tricked. So Germans' great joy, the citizens, this author is saying prior to World War II. Their great joy consists in fault-finding, shrieking, and threats. Their life is one perpetual explosion. To love their country is for them to despise, flout, and insult every other country. They are capable of little else but cheating and lying even to themselves. They meddle in everyone else's affairs, poking their noses into matters which do not concern them, criticizing everything, bossing everything, lowering and distorting everything. It's funny, this guy who wrote this was the leader of the Zionist, or one of the high-level members in Zionism, businessman, Jewish guy in New York City. No small guy. And if you know a little bit about the Jewish situation with the past couple thousand years, I guess they didn't think people would wake up and become intelligent enough or take the time out to research this stuff and create 400 hours of videos like I have on YouTube. Notwithstanding, many other people have written all these books I've gone over. So it's out there if people want to look for it. But a lot of people go, oh, that's depressing. I don't want to know. Some people tell me, yes, I know it's going to happen. But I'm going to party and have a good time till it does. There's more to our reality than this physical reality. And I believe our future, if we are reincarnated, or our spiritual souls go to the invisible reality, I think there is a consequence to pay for being apathetic and ignoring the murdering and death of other people. What kind of soul being would that be? What a pity that 23 centuries after Socrates and Plato, 2,000 years after the Christ, so they're talking about Jesus? I guess so. The voice of men like these should still be heard in the world. Well, we know a lot of the Jewish people, that comedian Sarah Silverstein, whatever, you can go look her up, and she says, yes, we killed Jesus, and if he comes back, we're going to kill him again. So I guess when it suits them to write propaganda, they'll side with Christ to get the Christians and other people to follow their hatred. Propaganda. Remember all the propaganda they had about Iraq. Should they all be killed, men, women, and children? A lot of people out there believe this garbage. Worse still, that they should be listened to. And worst of all, that anyone should believe them. So this is what they're saying about the Germans. They conceive their country as a permanent element of dissolution, like a devouring and insatiable monster, a beast of prey, whose one function is to plunder. That's what they're saying about the German people. Funny, when Germany was winning the war, it offered Britain very gracious terms of surrender. Just let bygones be bygones. That doesn't sound like what this description here is of Germans. All that it does not possess has been robbed of. The universe belongs to it by right. This is what they're saying of the Jewish people. I mean, the Germans. When we know by the Protocols of Zion and all those other books that they think that they're the ones who can come and save the world, and they're destined to rule over everybody else. Whoever attempts to escape from its tyranny is a rebel. That's what they do now to us people who are truth tellers. A lot of people will get angry with you. This jingo country, this bloodthirsty fetish of which they are the champions, they endow with their capriciousness of potentiates, when it suits their purpose, with every marvelous and charming attribute. Whatever does not at once agree with their extravagances is a barbarism. Hate is sacred to the Germans. For them, industrial progress is not a happy sign of national prosperity, but a means of domination. Every neighbor is of necessity a jealous one, and the enemy is is jealous too. So the enemy who is vigilant is jealous too. The world is populated by hyenas crouching on the plots of the earth from which they urge to be dislodged. So now this guy's saying the whole world is populated, that would be us people, by hyenas crouching on the plots of the earth from which they ought to be dislodged. So I guess if you want to tell the truth and get the story out there, you would be accused of being a hyena who needed to be dislodged from the earth. Oh my. There's more here. I can only read so much, but there was something I did want to read. I got these pages. I read all this stuff. You can look it up. And even on the Yahoo search, just to show you how much material is out there. Yahoo search. That's just a one page, 209,000 results. And then there was another person who wrote some more material that's kind of crazy. This is the guy, I guess, genocidal Kaufman and Houghton plans for Germany became a reality for all of Western Europe. Since the end of World War II, the European continent in particular, Western European nations have undergone a devastating demographic attack on an unprecedented scale that will lead to the indigenous European populations becoming minorities in their homelands of the ancestors by the end of this century. So apparently not only was Germany targeted for DNA manipulation, weeding out the white blood or German DNA. As we all know, they're bringing in Middle Easterners and Africans and all those countries all over the all over Europe and the United States. So this writer says this. You can look it up, read it. What is the motivation of this demographic genocide of European people? Why is it necessary to totally destroy beyond repair the racial and cultural makeup of the entire continent and race of people? The answer can be seen in the disturbing plans for genocide of the German people written by Theodore Kaufman, Germany Must Perish, who was a Jewish businessman, member of the World Zionist groups. And so they were all well organized. They brought about World War II and I. So according to my research, in a book called Germany Must Perish, written in 1940, a year before America entered into the Second World War, and another book by Ernest Houghton in a major article in newspapers, breed war strain out of the Germans. So they needed to breed it out of the Germanies, their war-torn souls. Oh, so in a New York daily paper, 1943, Ernest Houghton laid out an outbreeding plan that would destroy German nationalism and aggressive ideology while retaining and perpetuating desirable German biological and sociological capacities. And then Benjamin Colby's another book, "'Twas a Famous Victory," 1974. So back there in 1943, books and stuff in the paper were written. What we are going to do with the Germans. This is January 4th, 1943, almost towards the end of the war. So the Jews had declared war on Germany. Houghton looks at the war. The Harvard University professor's proposal called for genetically transforming the German nation by encouraging mating of German women with non-German men who would be brought into the country in large numbers, and of Germany. German men will be forcibly held outside of Germany. 10 to 12 million German men would be assigned to forced labor. Allied supervision in countries outside of Germany to rebuild their economies. The objects of this measure, wrote Dr. Houghton, include reduction of the birth rate of pure Germans and neutralization of German aggressiveness by outbreeding and denationalizing of indoctrinated individuals. So this is actually happening now in the world with this new world order and new age, and a lot of people are buying it. So all this propaganda, as we already know, like the Iraq War, weapons of mass destruction that didn't exist. So these people who control the media, the banks, and our politicians do use propaganda to sway public opinion. Does anybody want to disagree with that? Stuff was in the paper everywhere. Newspapers. Looking through my little thing I made. Alright, some of these people back then, famous people, said some things. And I thought I might try to end this video with some of these things said by powerful people who control a lot of things and have a great influence. But anyways, on this page it says, the mass promotion of misogenetic is not just a coincidence. So this mass promotion of bringing all these Middle Easterners, Africans into Europe and the United States and mixing up all the races is not a coincidence. The opening of this, according to this writer, you want to find this document. I showed you the title. The opening of our borders to Africa and Asia is not a coincidence. The constant negative and weak stereotype of the white male in advertising media and film is not a coincidence. The growing mix of race population is not a coincidence. They were already speaking of doing this to Germany years before our borders were opened. Which is interesting. They're having that program called Alaya. Let me get the pictures and show you. So while they're trying to take down the borders everywhere and dilute the other races or cultures, society as we know it, for 100 years, like I said, they've been creating artificial false flag incidences, anti-Semitism, to get the Jewish people all over the world to return home. So for 2,000 years, they've been in something called diaspora. And for the last 100 years, they've been in something called Alaya. And they've been shipping people into Israel. A lot of people didn't want to go to Israel, but they would create economic destruction or hatred to make them leave. The citizens at large, like myself and all, aren't anti-Semites. And you can't be really an anti-Semite because the Arab people are Semites also, not just the Hebrews. Remember, that's the Middle East. And most of the Jews today are not even brown or Hebrew. They're white. They're from Khazaria up by Russia and Germany. They converted to Judaism. But anyways, they're running this program. They're populating Israel now for the last 100 years. And the rest of the world is in a bit of a distressful situation. A lot of people are doing okay, so they don't care. A lot of people are not doing okay. Talk to the people in Ukraine or Germany or Middle East and all over Europe. More bombings, more stuff going on. Pouring in those people by the train loads, bus loads, even marching down through the streets, bringing in all the immigrants that they're coercing or forcing to move out of the Middle East, out of Africa, so that all these Jews all over the world can move into the Middle East. Does anybody see something wrong with this? So the Jews that were dispersed all over the world was called a diaspora. And for 100 years there's been this import of Jews from all over the world. Even the president or the Prime Minister Ariel Sharon is at the airport greeting the arriving Jewish people from all over the world. He's the one who had the... you can see his name there. He had a heated argument in his Congress. You can look this up. And some of the other Jewish leaders were saying, we can't keep destroying the Palestinian people and taking all their land. The United States might intervene. And he screamed, don't worry about the USA. We control the USA. It's no small thing what they're doing. This Aliyah thing. Great marketing program. People, when they get there, this is a religious thing too, and they're on the ground kissing the ground. They're populating Israel while they're trying to depopulate the rest of us. And the ironic thing about it is, they're Khazarians, a lot of them, Akhenates, not Shepherdetics, Hebrew. So they're white. But they want to dilute the rest of the world, the white races, and destroy borders and everybody else assimilate. Resistance is futile. Look at some of the symbols on this plane. They have a plane to bring all these people in. Jewish families from all over the world are moving to Israel, selling all of their businesses, moving their wealth. Meanwhile, the Jewish banksters, the Illuminati-type secret societies, control our economies, and they can take us down anytime they want. So like I said, this has been going on 100 years. Back in the 40s and 30s, people were arriving to Israel. They're celebrating their fulfillment of their prophecy to take over the world. And the young people are loving it. It's funny, these faces look like people we see in our city streets here. if they're Khazarians, they're from Northern Europe, so a lot of them are not really Jewish. They have the same DNA as I am or you are. But I suppose, like the past, kingdoms have always needed a lot of people to man their warfare machine. And they're certainly bringing in the people. Here's me in one of my videos I made. Freemasonry and Satanism book review 32 of 50. Long time ago. But look at the advertisements when I'm watching my own video for Aliyah. I thought that was strange. And Israel 66. It's been going on a while. And somebody's trying to demonize the Germans. Welcome to Israel. It's a very concerning topic. Because I know a lot of Jewish people where I live, and they're my friends and musicians, they're people I meet when I go out. A lot of people don't know really what's going on. You know, a lot of people don't want to look into it. Just like with the climate change issue. They'll shut you out. They'll scream at you. Mind control. There are quotes from influential Jews who boast about what they have done. Earl Raab, R-A-A-B, Executive Director Emeritus of the Perlmutter Institute of Jewish Advocacy, an associate of the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League of B'nai B'rith, and writer for the San Francisco Jewish Bulletin. So they even have an Anti-Defamation League so people can't say the truth about what's going on in the world, who controls things. But let's listen to what Earl here has to say. It was only after World War II that immigration law was drastically changed to eliminate such discrimination. In one of the first pieces of evidence of its political coming of age, the Jewish community has a leadership role in effecting these changes. Raab goes on to celebrate the coming minority status of whites in America. Once that has happened, he looks forward to constitutional constraints, to restrictions of freedom of speech. So they don't want people to say the truth. I guess they think we have bad DNA, that we're... What was that word I used? Hyenas lurking in the bushes to jump out at certain people? That couldn't be the furthest from the truth about me. I saw the world around me coming down, so I started investigating. The Census Bureau has just reported that about half of the American population will soon be non-white or non-European, and they will be American citizens. We have tipped beyond the point where a Nazi Aryan party will be able to prevail in this country. Wow, this guy's pretty high up. That's what he thinks. We have been nourishing the American climate of opposition to ethnic bigotry for about half a century. That climate has not been perfected, but the heterogeneous nature of our population tends to make it reversible and makes our constitutional constraints against bigotry more practical than ever. So pretty soon, well, they already have hate crimes, but if you try to say the truth on certain things, or you don't go along with the pansexualism, transgenderism, and the destruction of Christianity, you'll likely be accused as an anti-government belligerent or a hater. It is just a coincidence that the driving force behind the 1965 Open Immigration Act in America were powerful Jewish groups who have been campaigning to have the borders open for decades. There's nothing new here going on. These pictures of Aliyah have been going on for quite a while. Go on Yahoo image site, just type in Aliyah. Is it just a coincidence that wherever there is a white major population on the earth, they are being chased down by the diversity deception with genocidal intent? America, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, along with the Western European nations, are all being targeted for demographic terrorism by this hostile Jewish outgroup who constitute a very powerful and influential minority of our nations. So they have more pages on this document. In 1944, another book was written which advocated the mass psychological brainwashing of the German people. It was called What to Do with Germany and was written by Louis Nietzsche. Nietzsche was a wealthy Jewish lawyer from New York and was also a colleague of Theodore Kaufman and Henry Montague. These are the people who wanted to put all those financial burdens on Germany after World War I that destroyed that whole nation. It was insane. FDR's Secretary of Treasury and author of the Montague Plan, Nietzsche was in favor of absolute brainwashing of the German people, turning them into conformative zombies, if you like. I didn't write this stuff. But we know that here in the USA, a lot of people are mindless zombies now. It says here more stuff on this information. Re-education will be compulsory for young and old alike and must not be restricted to the classroom. We should employ the great power of conviction that goes with the dramatic presentation of in its service. Movies can be used to greatest effort here. So apparently companies like RAND and the CIA and many other corporations and peoples are in collusion to bring us these movies and books and all this other stuff, Modern Family, to sway the way we think, to bring about a new paradigm. And according to the channeled material I've been listening to, one of the channelers, I think it was in Cryon today, said the old earth is gone. The old rules do not apply. The old God is gone. God does change. Because you're God. You're closer to God when you get on the other side of the veil, when you leave this physical body. That's what it was saying in the Cryon video. Please go online and watch a few of them. Take some notes. You'll be stunned by what they say. So God has changed. That God is maybe dead now. We have a new God. We should employ the greatest authors, producers, and stars under the auspices of the International University to dramatize the limitless evils of Nazism and contrast these evils with the simple beauty of a Germany that is no longer obsessed with marching and shouting. The re-education process must penetrate all German society. During their leisure time, the working classes should receive simple lessons in democracy. So I'll give everybody a simple lesson in democracy right here. With all the deception, with all the lies, in the news, the nightly news, the TV programming, if you pay attention to the sentences, even the cartoons our kids are watching, the schools, the material that's taught in the schools now. And if the majority of the people are following that brainwashing, they'll vote with what they think is the truth. And if somebody's controlling that, and there's plenty of evidence to suggest they are, then this majority is really not a democracy. It's mesmerized, brainwashed populace of people who will be under such sway of control when they want to bring some kind of hardship on the planet or a country or a city, and then they'll point over there and say, those people are the one who are causing all your distress, all your suffering. And if we got rid of those people, you'd be better off. You'll be happier. How much lynching in the streets by the Satanists of good Christians will happen? Young people may be being told that Social Security benefits can't afford to support all these baby boomers, and they have to die. Remember that movie Soylent Green? They were throwing humans in a big vat and making food out of them. There are some horrific accusations out there of stuff like that. Illuminati, Satanist, Kabbalist, human sacrificing, that Pizzagate, and those other crazy things they were doing. Making a cake from a human being and they were all at a party eating it. Over there in Holland, Amsterdam or whatever, a big rock concert from the sprinklers in the sky. They were spraying the audiences with pig's blood or blood. And now we talk about the invisible reality, the visible and invisible reality. What is behind all this? What did Cryon mean when God is dead? God changed. Old Earth is gone. Many German prisoners of war will remain in Russia after the war is over. So these are stuff that were written back then. Not voluntarily, of course, but because Russia needs their labor. So I guess they were going to get a lot of the Germans enslaved in Russia to do mining and stuff. This is completely legal, and it lessens the danger of returning prisoners might be the nucleus of a new national movement. So they want to get rid of nationalism. President Donald Trump seems to be going against that grain, and he's taking the heat for it. But is it all a facade? Is he really trying to fix things? Is he aware of things that a lot of people are waking up to? Why doesn't he stop the sky spraying of chemicals in our sky? Even if we do not wish to keep German prisoners after war, we should send them to Russia. Whenever possible, their professors should be liberal and democratic. Well, here we know what these people are. The invention of foreigners could have an agitating intervention of foreigners could have an agitating effect. So I'm skipping some pages here because I want to read a few more things about what famous people said back then. Our Jewish interest. This was Secretary of the U.S. Treasury, Monteagle. War in Europe in 1934 was inevitable. So the Secretary of the U.S. Treasury, who was a Jewish man, says war in Europe in 1934 was inevitable. That was quoted in the Palestinian plot by B. Jensen in 1933. So if World War II started in 1939, they were preparing for this 5 years earlier, saying it was inevitable. Okay, what's up here? Joining with Samuel Udemeyer in calling for a war against Germany, Bernard Baruch, this was the guy that was advising President Woodrow Wilson during World War I, a Jewish well-known man. At the end of the war, and in Henry Ford's books that I've gone over, he was the most powerful man in America advising Woodrow Wilson, much to the dismay of representatives and congressmen in Washington, D.C. And they were preparing for World War I, industrializing the manufacturing facilities. Before that happened also. So, calling for war against Germany, Bernard Baruch, at the same time was promoting preparations for a war against Germany. I emphasized that the defeat of Germany and Japan and their elimination from world trade would give Britain a tremendous opportunity to swell her foreign commerce in both volume and profit. And that was Baruch, The Public Years by Bernard Baruch. So he wrote a book saying these things. Okay, we got another one up here. Judea declares war on Germany. The Daily Express, March 24th, 1933. Judea declares war on Germany. Jews of all the world unite. Boycott of German goods. Mass demonstrations. These were all the headlines in the Daily Express of March 24th, 1933. The Israeli people around the world declare economic and financial war against Germany. 14 million Jews stand together as one man to declare war against Germany. The Jewish wholesaler will forsake his firm, the banker his stock exchange, the merchant his commerce, and the poor pauper shall, in order, so all join together, even the poor people, in a holy war against Hitler's people. Daily Express newspaper, March 24th, 1933. Each of you, Jew and Gentile alike, they call us non-Jews Gentiles, who has not already enlisted in this sacred war. I keep talking about the visible reality and invisible reality, channeled materialism, the Kabbalah, mysticism, sacred war, should do so now, here and now. So they were calling on everybody to join in this sacred war. It is not sufficient that you should buy no goods made in Germany. You must refuse to deal with any merchant or shopkeeper who sells any German-made goods or who patronizes German ships or shipping. So they were literally trying to destroy Germany before World War II. We will undermine the Hitler regime and bring the German people to their senses by destroying their export trade, on which their very existence depends. And there, like I said, there are some attacks going against President Donald Trump right now. I suppose it's all meant for our public consumption. There's a plan going on, Hegelian dialectic, keep the two sides fighting each other. So that was Samuel Unimeyer in a radio broadcast on WABC, New York, August 6, 1933. And reported in the New York Times, August 7, 1933. So lots of propaganda and action being taken against German. 5 years, 4 years, 3 years, 2 years, 1 year, weeks, months before the war actually started. Germany was under attack. What would we in the United States do if somebody was doing that to us? All right, moving on. What else did I highlight here? Some more famous people who said stuff. We Jews are going to bring a war on Germany. David Brown, National Chairman, United Jewish Campaign, 1934. We Jews are going to bring a war on Germany. Quoted in I Testify Against the Jews by Robert Edward Edmondson. You can find this material. Page 188, tells you the page number. And The Jewish War of Survival by Honor Lease. So I guess I got to get these books and read them. We want to bring about a deep hatred for the Germans. For German soldiers, sailors, and airmen, we must hate until we win. Lord Beaverbrook, quoted in Niemals by Heinrich Gotsch. There is only one power which really counts. The power of political pressure. We Jews are the most powerful people on earth because we have this power and we know how to apply it. That would be Vladimir Jabotinsky, Jewish Daily Bulletin, July 27th, 1935. Did you hear what I said? We have this power, and we know how to apply it. Do you see how that ties in what's going on right now in the world? Okay, another one here. Before the end of the year, an economic bloc of England, Russia, France, and the U.S. Will be reformed to bring the German, Italian economic systems to their knees. That was Paul Dreyfus, and that was in the book La de Tangier, May 15th, 1938. So, a year before World War II started. On the 3rd of June, 1938, the American Hebrew boasted, that would be a pamphlet magazine, that they had the Jews in the foremost positions of influence. So the Jews are in the foremost positions of influence, 1938, in Britain, Russia, France, and that those three sons of Israel, Britain, Russia, and France, three sons of Israel, will be sending the Nazi dictator to hell. Joseph Trimble in the American Hebrew. Germany is our public enemy number one. It is our object to declare war without any mercy against her. One may be sure of this. We will lead the war. Bernard Leclanche, the president of the International League Against Racism and Anti-Semitism, in its newspaper, Die Droit d'Avier. The war now proposed is for the purpose of establishing Jewish hegemony throughout the world. So the war proposed now is for the purpose of establishing Jewish rule throughout the world. And that's Brigadier General George Van Horn Mosley in the New York Tribune, March 29, 1939, days before the war. One more. This is too unbelievable. I wish to confirm in the most explicit manner the declaration which I and my colleagues made during last month's, and especially in last week, that the Jews stand by Great Britain and will fight on the side of the democracies. Our urgent desire is to give effect to these declarations. We wish to do so in a way entirely consistent with the general scheme of Britain action, and therefore would place ourselves, in matters big and small, under the coordinating director of Her Majesty's government. The Jewish Agency is ready to enter into immediate arrangements for utilizing Jewish manpower, technical ability, resources, etc. So they controlled the presidents of the United States from Wilson on. Make no mistake about that. Chaim Weizmann, president of the World Jewish Congress, head of the Jewish Agency and later president of Israel, the London Times, September 5th, 1939. So days before the war. Germany had already been under serious siege and attack economically and probably by lots of espionage and everything else for more than 5 years. And, they did learn after World War I that they were betrayed. In the London Jewish Chronicler, September 8, 1939. The millions of Jews who live in America, England and France, North and South Africa, and not to forget those in Palestine, are determined to bring the war of annihilation against Germany to its final end. Central Blad Voor, Israel 10 in Netherlands, September 13th, 1939. It just documents where they got this material. Stop talking about peace conditions. Break Germany in pieces. The Daily Herald, 9 December 1939. Before the war ever began. The Jews, taken collectively, view this war as a holy war. The Jews, taken collectively, view this war as a holy war. The Daily Herald, 1939, quoted in Reichstag, historic legend by U. Blakes, K.C., and Jenberg, Jesse, tells who the authors were of the books. The Second World War is being fought for the defense of the fundamentals of Judaism. Rabbi Felix Mendelssohn, Chicago Sentinel, October 8, 1942. Did you hear me? The Second World War is being fought for the defense of the fundamentals of Judaism. We are not denying and are not afraid to confess that this war is our war and that it is waged for the liberation of Jewry. So for 2,000 years, the Jewish people have struggled wherever they went. Now they're in a position it seems like they're going to control the world. And not all Jews. Like I said before, Henry McCall, PhD, Jewish author in Canada, wrote Illuminati, the cult that hijacked the world. Who are the Illuminati? They be illuminated. They were initiated. They're part of secret societies. What's the backbone behind the secret societies? That would be the Kabbalah, the mysticism. And what's behind that? Some kind of entities in the unseen reality, the invisible world, beyond the veil. We have sinister demons guiding humans to destroy the rest of us. So it seems. I could go on here, but you can look up this document. I showed you the search results. When I keyword on Yahoo search site, Germany must perish, and I found all those links. That's where I found these documents. This particular document, you can do these keywords. The Jews declare war on Germany, 1933. If you want to get this and print it out for yourself. There's much more here. Here's another one here. The Jewish Declaration of War on Germany, 1933. So, the Jews knew that they had betrayed Germany in World War I. So they had a problem there. If the people got together and found out and started writing books, it would have maybe meant the destruction of the Jewish people everywhere. So Germany had to be destroyed, maybe, to shut them out. And I did look at the Yahoo image site and put in there, Judea declares war on Germany. And there's all kinds of pictures of the newspapers. You can go there and pull them up on your screen and see the newspapers, what was going on. And there was a plan. And these plans were in writing. These books were written. And there is a plan now. And I've been making videos. I've been trying to find out what the heck is going on. Because it just appeared to me that our reality is being controlled. And I was curious to find out who's controlling. And I unexpectedly, after almost 13 years of research, see that this situation has been going on for thousands of years. And there are evil, malevolent forces in the visible reality walking around on Earth. Secret societies, Zionism, high levels of the Freemasonry, Rosicrucian, secret societies, mysticism, Kabbalism, and they control Hollywood, they control the media, they control our politicians, and they have a plan. And apparently part of that, our reality, does involve the invisible reality. Go look at all these channeled materials and these entities who are communicating to these people, who are having huge lectures of people coming and listening to this message that you are God. You can manifest anything you want. The old God is dead. Or the old earth is dead. We're ascending. You're going to get a higher vibration. You're going to become more powerful. You can have whatever you want. Will the people believe the deception? Will they follow the beguilement? Thank you for watching my video, Rick Miracle reporting.